Chapter 41. You are listening at Novelful.audio. Guan Li dismissed the idea. It wasn't his problem, so what if the animals were mutating? As long as he was strong enough, he'd be fine. The blood-drinking blade had absorbed the mutated husky's flesh and blood, its bloody tendrils returned with a few crystal cores. It only cared about flesh and blood. Guan Li tossed 3 2-star crystal cores into his space ring. Mutated animals were just a minor distraction. He kept moving forward. Just a few steps later, an option popped up. Option 1. Go to the aquarium. Kill the soon-to-be-born Black Turtle King, and receive the Black Turtle. Blood Essence, Black Scale Armor, and a 6-star crystal core. Option 2. Go to the Tropical Rainforest Pavilion in the Southern District. Kill the soon-to-be-born Silver Horn Python, and receive the Silver Flood Blood, a random skill book, and a 7-star crystal core. Option 3. Go to the Downtown Z shopping mall, kill the soon-to-be-born Zombie King, and receive the Zombie King's treasure and a 5-star crystal core. Guan Li hesitated, then scrapped the first 2 options. They were too risky. The rewards were great, but the odds were slim. The Black Turtle King meant fighting underwater, the Silver Horn Python meant fighting in a rainforest. Those were the monster's turf, putting him at a serious disadvantage. The Zombie King, however, was in a shopping mall. That terrain suited him better. After weighing the pros and cons, he chose option 3. He wasn't too far from the Central Shopping Mall. Let's go. Central Shopping Mall, here we come. Guan Li glanced at a map of City Z by the roadside. He headed down the street. He needed to cross 2 districts, a park, 3 commercial streets, and a football field. As he walked, roadside zombies attacked. Though fierce, they were just 1-star weaklings, easy targets. Shoo. 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 A dozen feathered arrows flew, instantly headshotting the zombies. Huh. Why isn't it eating them? Guan Li looked at the blood-drinking blade, puzzled. The bloody tendrils clumsily spelled out 2 words. Yucky. Guan Li was speechless. The thing was a picky eater. Reluctantly, he had the soldiers search the corpses. They dug out 5 1-star crystal cores. He traded them instantly, earning 38 points. At the end of the street was a fancy residential area. Cutting through it would save a lot of time. Groan. Groan. A few zombies were trapped in the security booth. Spotting Guan Li, they reached through the window. Gu rushed forward, his sword instantly killing them. Bad luck. No crystal cores or cards dropped. He entered the community smoothly along the wide road. The landscaping was well maintained. Zombies in security uniforms roamed the street. Irene fired a few arrows, easily taking them down. The community was quiet. Not many zombies were around. Being a residential area, most were probably trapped. Inside their homes, he noticed red cloths hanging from many buildings. On them, various pleas for help were written. The survivors, seeing Guan Li, frantically waved their cloths. They didn't dare shout, afraid of attracting the zombies. Evolved zombies were incredibly strong. Ordinary doors couldn't withstand their attacks. Just yesterday, people provoked the zombies outside, and they broke in, learning from that mistake. The remaining survivors stayed quiet. Guan Li ignored their cries. The survivors grew desperate. They scribbled messages on the cloths. I have tons of money. I'll give you anything you want. Wrote a man wearing expensive brands. Hot guy. Save me, and I'll do whatever you say. Wrote a busty girl. I'm the CEO of XX company. Save me, and I'll give you a job. Wrote a bald, greasy man. Guan Li ignored them all. Those things were worthless now. Money. Useless. Status. History. A pretty woman. Just asking for trouble. Die. I curse you. The man in brands wrote. You bastard. I'll carve you up. The bald man threw a kitchen knife. At that distance, a good throw could hit Guan Li. You asked for it. Bone raised its shield, deflecting the knife. The skeleton mage behind it conjured a fireball. 10 fireballs streaked out and hit the bald man's apartment. Whoa. Magic. The man shuddered, diving for cover. The fireball struck the 7th floor balcony. The once pristine white wall instantly turned black. Master, should I take him out? Bone asked. It wouldn't be hard, just a waste of time. Shen Lian, you go. Guan Li's tone was cold. he had ignored the man's plea for help, and the guy tried to kill him. What a rotten heart. Guan Li wouldn't show mercy to someone like that. As you command. Shen Lian vanished. Let's go. Keep moving. Guan Li didn't stop. At Shen Lian's speed, he'd be back with the group soon. Phew. Damn. That guy's got power. In his lavish living room, kitchen knife guy gasped. If he hadn't dodged, the fireball would have burned him to a crisp. Even so, he was covered in sweat. What the hell is going on in this world? Magic, too? He had thought the zombies were just from some unknown virus. Once things calmed down, he could go back to his old life, but that seemed impossible now. City defense hadn't come to the rescue, so things were definitely bad. That guy. Is he gone? He peeked through the curtains. Guan Li was disappearing into the distance. He sighed in relief. Phew. Good thing I'm on a high floor. He sat down, but before he could relax, a loud banging started outside his door. Groan. Groan. The zombies' roars filled his ears. Zombies? How did they get here? His face went white. He checked yesterday. His floor was safe. The banging grew louder. He scrambled to his feet, trying to barricade the door. Click. The sound of the lock opening. He froze. Who opened the door? Before he could think, the zombies rushed in. He screamed. A zombie knocked him down. Sharp claws tore open his stomach, scattering his insides. The zombies devoured him. He wasn't dead yet. He was still conscious, helpless. He watched them eat him alive. He was consumed by despair. Through the gap, he saw a man standing in the hallway. The man was smiling. That smile terrified him. Chapter 42 Meeting the Awakened on the Road. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He's gonna regret that. Regretting messing with that kid, for sure. Too bad there's no going back now. Shen Lian's figure faded as he disappeared down the hall. Yep, that was all his doing. He could travel through shadows like it was nothing. Guan Li left that area and headed down another street. Shen Lian quickly reappeared beside him. Boss. It's done. That guy bought the farm. Shen Lian reported. Alright. Spare me the details. Guan Li waved his hand. Serves him right. The street was crawling with zombies, and they were all zeroing in on Guan Li's crew. The Legion was growing fast. After all, 67 people strong now. They couldn't exactly blend in anymore. The zombies groaned and lurched toward Guan Li. He was about to step in when a massive crocodile burst out of an alley. This thing was 10 feet tall, maybe 18 feet long. Its scales were all puffed up like little sacks, and its massive claws were tipped with razor-sharp ice. Crunch, star. The ice croc snapped those zombies in half. Roar. Star. A cloud of frost puffed from its jaws. It opened wide and unleashed a blast of freezing air. The zombies on the street were instantly flash frozen. You could feel the chill even from a distance. Then, the giant ice croc swung its tail like a wrecking ball. The frozen zombies shattered into a million pieces. In just 10 seconds, it had wiped out dozens of zombies. Sure, they were just low-level 1 stars, but it still proved the croc was a beast. Guan Li held back for now. He spotted someone riding on the croc's back, a human. Huh? A person? The figure on the ice beast noticed Guan Li too. It was a girl with pale skin, delicate features, but no color in her face, long black hair, smooth as silk. Little croc. Head over there. The girl ordered the giant croc toward Guan Li. They stopped about 15 feet away. She was definitely keeping her distance, just in case. I'm Han Xiaolu. What's your name? The girl hopped off the croc. Guan Li, he replied curtly. He could tell she wasn't trying to be hostile. So, this is your power? Summoning skeleton soldiers. I thought I was the only one with a special ability. Han Xiaolu asked, all wide-eyed and curious. Yeah, something like that. What about you? Guan Li said evasively. He did summon the undead army, after all. I got Little Croc as a starter gift. Plus, I can control ice. Han Xiaolu said, showing Guan Li. A tiny ice crystal instantly formed in her hand. Guan Li's hackles rose. Can't be too careful. He mentally put his legion on high alert. If she tried anything, they'd be ready to pounce, but he was probably being paranoid. She didn't seem like she had any bad intentions. After showing him the ice crystal, she made it disappear. Guan Li didn't feel embarrassed. In the apocalypse, you can't trust anyone. Cool. Lucky you. Guan Li nodded, his eyes ran over the giant beast beside Han Xiaolu. Name, Ice Giant Crocodile, Evolvable, Potential, 8 stars, Strength, 3-star Intermediate, Abilities, Frost Armor, Ice Breath, Crazy Tail Whip, Death Freeze, Evaluation, Giant Crocodile with Ice Blood has huge potential. Yeah, I guess so. Especially considering what happened to my best friend, I'm pretty lucky. Han Xiaolu's thoughts turned to her friend who had turned into a zombie. If she hadn't gotten the ice croc at the last second and been able to kill him, that she'd be dead now. Where are you headed? Han Xiaolu asked. Looking for the city defense force. Guan Li said, making up an excuse. No way he was gonna tell her what he was really up to. Awesome. Me too. Want to team up? Safety in numbers. A big grin spread across Han Xiaolu's face. Nah, I'm a lone wolf, Guan Li said. You. A lone wolf, Han Xiaolu pointed to the army of dudes behind him. Yep. Flying solo, Guan Li said without batting an eye. Okay. Well, I won't hold you up then, Han Xiaolu said, not pushing it. Hey. A word of advice. In the apocalypse, don't trust anyone too much, Guan Li said, then turned and walked away. Han Xiaolu stood there, looking confused. Little croc. Do I look like an idiot? The ice croc nodded, then shook its head. Damn it. No treats for you today. Han Xiaolu snapped, Ice Croc, QAQ. Meeting Han Xiaolu was just a blip on the radar. Guan Li walked down the street, the giant ice croc fading into the distance. In an alley, several huge wild cats were lurking. They sat on the wall, sizing up Guan Li. But they decided against it. This dude was way too strong. Watching Guan Li walk away, the mutated wild cats retreated into the shadows, waiting for easier prey. Guan Li stepped out of the alley. Ahead, a natural park stretched out. Huh. The plants are starting to mutate too. He stood on the street, staring at the park 100 yards away. Thick trees cast shadows over the fence at the entrance. The leaves were spilling out onto the street. Guan Li watched the park. The changes overnight had transformed it into a jungle. The entrance now looked like a beast opening its jaws, waiting to swallow anyone who passed by. Guan Li wasn't scared, of course. He walked straight in. The thick foliage blocked the sun. The temperature dropped instantly. Swish. Starred out a zombie wandered into Guan Li's path. Judging by his outfit, he used to be an old guy practicing Tai Chi. Ugh. The zombie uncle spotted Guan Li and shambled toward him, pathetically weak, though. Guan Li's blood drinker blade made short work of him. A few drops of dirty blood splattered off the blade. It clearly thought the blood was gross. Guan Li moved on. The zombies weren't the real danger in this place. He followed the cement path toward a lake. By the water, a monster with a lion's face was crouched down, drinking. Huh. Something's up. Guan Li ordered his legion to hide in the bushes. Natural disaster monster. His eyes flashed. Boss. You want us to take it out? Gu crawled on his belly toward Guan Li. Hard to hide when you're that huge. Even squatting, he was hard to miss. Guan Li grinned. Let's do it. Chapter 43. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guan Li ordered his legionnaires to encircle the entire artificial lake. Unlike zombies, natural disaster monsters are intelligent. If they're losing, they'll likely try to escape. Following Guan Li's command, the soldiers quietly surrounded the lake. A lion-faced monster lazed by the water, unaware of the approaching danger. Name, Lion Monster, Boss Level, Potential, 7 stars, Strength, 4-star Intermediate. Abilities, Claw Kick, Thunder Fist, Ground Claw, Golden Claw Strike. Evaluation. This natural disaster monster came through the crack. It's powerful and fights using thunder and gold elements. Guan Li glanced at the monster, then at the information the system provided. 4-star Intermediate. Guan Li's expression turned serious. His legionnaires were all 3-star Strength. Think you can take him? Guan Li muttered. For anyone else, fighting an enemy a level above you would be next to impossible, but for Guan Li, it wasn't that difficult. After all, he had numbers on his side. They could overwhelm the master with sheer force. The legionnaires stood ready, awaiting Guan Li's order. Archers, prepare. Skeleton mages, ready. Guan Li commanded. Elven archers drew their bows, aiming armor-piercing arrows. Regular arrows wouldn't do significant damage to monsters of this caliber. The skeleton mages raised their bone staffs, targeting the lion monster. Fire! Guan Li shouted. Star. Rumble. Star. A dozen cold, gleaming arrows streaked toward the lion monster. Above it, 10 thumb-thick lightning bolts crackled and fell. Roar! The lion monster roared, sensing danger and trying to dodge, but it was too late. The armor-piercing arrows sank deep into its hide. The lightning struck, only to be absorbed by a layer of golden light. It absorbs thunder. Interesting. Guan Li was surprised the lightning didn't hurt it, but that wouldn't change the outcome. The lion monster was going down. Charge! Guan Li, blood drinker in hand, burst from the woods. Immediately, soldiers surged forward from all sides. Ho ho ho! The lion monster, enraged at being surrounded, exploded in fury. They thought they could treat him like prey. Unforgivable. It ripped the arrows from its flesh, blood oozing from the wounds, but almost instantly, the wounds began to heal. The lion monster slashed its sharp claws, a golden blade of energy shot forward. The skeleton sword and shield soldiers and skeleton gun and shield soldiers raised their shields to block. The energy blade slammed into the shields, splitting them in half. Several skeletons behind the shields had their shoulders nearly severed. Powerful attack. Definitely a 4-star monster. The battle had just begun, and there were already casualties, but fortunately, the skeletons didn't feel pain. Even with a shoulder sliced off, they kept fighting with their remaining arm. Bone spears and knives struck the lion monster. They left faint white marks on its tough fur, failing to penetrate its defenses, but the resulting pain infuriated the monster. These bony ants dared to attack it. It swept its legs, sending 3 skeleton gun and shield soldiers flying. Fireball! Seizing the opportunity, a volley of fireballs slammed into the lion monster. Ow! The lion monster wailed. Its fur was scorched black. If it could absorb lightning, they'd attack with fire. Immediately after the fireballs, 12 armor-piercing arrows shot out. Arrows found their marks on the monster's arms, shoulders, chest, and other vulnerable spots. It howled again. The lion monster was strong, but it was just one monster. Guan Li had dozens of legionnaires. With their coordinated attacks, they assaulted the lion monster from all sides. Guan Li charged forward. Blood soul slash! He swung the blood drinker, unleashing a bloody arc of energy. The lion monster sensed a terrifying power. Without hesitation, it gathered its own strength. Thunder fist. Golden lightning crackled on the monster's fist. It punched forward, the energy coalescing into a lion's head of thunder. The 2 attacks collided, the bloody arc dissipated, and the lion's head of thunder vanished. Guan Li, a mid-level 3-star, was barely holding his own against the monster with the help of the blood drinker. That was saying something. Taking advantage of the monster's momentary pause, Shen Lian saw an opening. Swordsmanship. The shadow sword cultivators unleashed their sword-controlling technique. 26 flying swords slashed toward the lion monster. Roar! The lion monster tried to retaliate, but the thunder fist had drained too much of its energy. It couldn't use it again so soon. Desperate, it could only try to evade. Scaled beast clash. Gu, wielding his scale armor shield, slammed into the lion monster. The force of the impact sent it flying. It didn't do much damage, but it knocked the monster back into the path of the flying swords. Swish, swish! The sword slashed at the lion monster, leaving countless wounds. The lion monster half knelt, panting. Although its wounds were healing, it was clearly slowing down. Its rapid healing ability had its limits. Roar! A cornered beast was still dangerous. The lion monster's eyes glowed red as it glared at Guan Li. Gathering the last of its power, it charged straight at him. Protect the master! Bone yelled. He wanted to stop the lion monster, but he was too slow. The lion monster swatted aside several shadow sword cultivators and lunged at Guan Li. It was intelligent. It knew that the other creatures were all focused on this human. If it could take him hostage, it could escape. Good plan. But I'm not a pushover. Guan Li had been training for just such an occasion. Teleportation. He vanished. The lion monster sailed through the air, confusion in its eyes. It couldn't understand how the human in front of it had disappeared. Guan Li reappeared behind it. Hand of the blood demon. A monstrous, bloody arm materialized, testing the arm. Enjoying the surge of strength it provided, Guan Li slashed at the lion monster. With the blood demon hand's power, Guan Li's strength exploded. He easily bypassed the lion monster's defenses. The lion monster tried to retaliate, but the earlier battle had left it weakened. The blood drinker seemed to have found a delicious meal. The part of the sword piercing the lion monster's body began to sprout bloody tendrils. Fear flashed across the lion monster's face. It attacked Guan Li. Guan Li smirked. He released the blood drinker. The lion monster grabbed the hilt, trying to pull it out, but the blood drinker wasn't about to let go so easily. It began sucking blood. Bloody tendrils wrapped around the lion monster's arm. Soon, the creature's entire body was covered in bloody tendrils. Chapter 44. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The lion monster thrashed a bit, then collapsed. If it had been at full strength, the blood-drinking blade might not have controlled it, but the constant fighting had weakened it considerably. The blood-drinking blade was the final blow, breaking the camel's back. Killed lion monster, gained 2000 points, lion monster summoning card X1, the system notification chimed. The bloody tentacles covering the lion monster's body receded like a tide, revealing a grotesque mummy. The lion monster's corpse was skin and bones, completely drained of flesh and blood. Guan Li walked over and picked up the blue card the monster had dropped. He pulled the blood-drinking blade free, along with a bright crystal nucleus. The nucleus, ensnared by bloody tentacles, was extracted from the monster's remains. Nice work. Guan Li patted the blood-drinking blade. The blade trembled slightly in response. Holding the lion monster's crystal nucleus, Guan Li began to absorb it. The energy within the 4-star nucleus was like a raging river, surging into his body. Guan Li devoured the pure energy. Snap. Star. Like a barrier breaking, he opened his eyes, his aura even more intense. Having absorbed the lion monster's nucleus, he had successfully broken through to 3-star advanced. The surging energy within him seemed to promise. 4-star strength wasn't far off. After absorbing the crystal nucleus, Guan Li picked up the summoning card from the system. Lion monster summoning card, summons a 4-star mid-level lion monster to fight for you. While summoned, you are immune to death. Ignore all negative effects, and lasts 1 minute. Guan Li's eyes widened. That was a sweet, one-time use card, an invincible 4-star bruiser on demand. Guan Li stashed the card, saving it as his trump card. The lion monster was pretty strong. Combined with the invincibility buff, its power would be doubled. Guan Li had only killed it thanks to overwhelming numbers. With so many legionnaires ganging up, the lion monster didn't stand a chance. 5 soldiers were killed in the fight. 3 skeleton sword and shield soldiers and 2 skeleton spear and shield soldiers. Those killed in action were returned to the system to be resurrected. While the wounded rested up, Guan Li picked up the blue card the lion monster had dropped and crushed it. Acquired Legion upgrade card X1, increases Legion strength by 1 level. Only usable below 10-star strength. Sweet. Guan Li's eyes lit up. After a moment's thought, he decided to use the upgrade card on the skeleton undead army. Their strength was around the 3-star level. Upgrading them would make them 4-star junior level. He needed a 4-star army, and the skeleton undead army was the largest. Using the upgrade card on them was the best choice right now. System. Upgrade the skeleton undead army. Having weighed the options, Guan Li didn't hesitate. He wasn't one to waffle. Just do it. After the upgrade card was used, the skeleton undead army was bathed in white light. Their aura intensified. Congratulations, Shen Lian and Irene said. Ha, ha, ha. Thanks, he smiled. There was harmony among the legions. Let's go. Try to find a place to hole up before dark. Seeing that the legionnaires had mostly recovered, Guan Li pressed on. The nature park wasn't that big. Besides the lion monster, Guan Li encountered several mutated creatures, but they weren't too strong and didn't cause much trouble. About half an hour later, Guan Li pushed aside some thorns and climbed through a broken railing. It wasn't a dog hole, just a busted railing. Back on the street, the sun was setting. Groan, a few disheveled zombies stumbled towards Guan Li. He swung his blood-drinking blade and dispatched them easily. The legionnaires squeezed through the railing and into the street. Guan Li kept moving forward. In just 2 days, the once luxurious metropolis had begun to decay. The empty streets were filled with wrecked cars. The once bustling avenues were now a haven for zombies and monsters. The former residents could only hide in the shadows. Shivering, Guan Li walked down the street, and zombies shambled towards him from the sidewalks. Aaron's team kept firing, dropping zombies before they got close. Skeleton sword and shield soldiers walked on the outer edges of the team, protecting the shadow sword fighters and ranged soldiers within. Guan Li was protected in the center. The team pressed on, passing through the long, narrow street. Envious eyes watched from the buildings on both sides. After 2 days of terror, most of the survivors had accepted the apocalypse. How they wished they were the ones being protected by the soldiers. But unfortunately, that was just a dream. After leaving the street, it was completely dark. The blood-red sunset faded into the sky. The last glimmer of light seemed to warn the world that night was coming. Howl. Groan, howl. The sun had completely set, and darkness had fallen. Terrifying roars echoed from all directions. Anyone else might be scared witless, but Guan Li remained calm. He had the elf archers activate their senses. They would attack immediately if there was any trouble. Guan Li remembered a city football stadium not far ahead. Many soccer games were played there. Guan Li decided to set up camp in the stadium for the night. Remembering what he knew, there hadn't been any games recently, meaning there probably weren't too many people at the stadium when the apocalypse hit. Walking along the dark street for about 10 minutes, they were attacked by a few waves of mutated creatures, but fortunately, they weren't strong or numerous, and the legionnaires took them down easily. Under the moonlight, Guan Li saw a huge building in the distance rising from the ground. Beneath the moon, there were 3 giant scarlet letters. Football Stadium. But now, the 3 letters seemed ominous. The quiet stadium radiated a disturbing atmosphere. Let's go. Guan Li wasn't intimidated. In the apocalypse, nowhere was truly safe. At the entrance, popcorn and Coke cups were scattered. Even without major games, fans still came to play pickup matches, so the stadium remained open for business, and nothing that was normally sold had been left behind. Under the moonlight, Guan Li saw blood on the ground. It was disturbing. It seemed that things hadn't been peaceful when the apocalypse started. On either side of the entrance were statues of football superstars. Their eyes were fixed on the entrance. Normally, it would be nothing, but now, stained with blood, the statues looked unsettling. Chapter 45 The Terrorist Puppet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was quiet in the football stadium, no zombies in the entrance hall, but the blood on the ground told a different story. This place hadn't been peaceful. Not all the horrors these days came from zombies. Judging by the looks of it, Guan Li hadn't run into too much weird stuff yet. Moonlight couldn't reach into the hall. Guan Li pulled out an ever-burning lamp and some bright candles, chasing away the shadows. The lamp cast a glow about 15 feet out. He walked into the dark passage. Dried blood stained the ground. Bloody handprints made a long, disturbing trail. Something terrible went down here. Still no sign of zombies in the whole stadium. If zombies were out, that left natural disaster monsters. Guan Li didn't flinch, pressing on. The passage wasn't long, and a glimmer of light shone ahead. He walked through it and emerged onto the open-air football field. The stands were a mess. Trash was scattered everywhere. Looked like chaos erupted when the world went sideways. Still no zombies. Seemed like it was just him and the legionnaires. Too quiet. Unnaturally so. Bone. Take the first watch tonight. He said. Yes, master. Bone nodded, ordering his troops to set up a perimeter. Guan Li went to the side near the stands, pulled out his folding cot, and set it up. A cold autumn wind blew across the field. September days were usually hot and dry, but the nights got chilly. He lay down and quickly drifted off. He thought he'd get through the night without a hitch, but then, in the dead of night, a strange sound echoed in the stadium. Asterisk giggle, star dot asterisk quack quack, star dot asterisk hee hee, star. Guan Li's eyes snapped open. He spotted the legionnaires guarding around him and felt a bit better. Master. You're awake. Bone was by the cot. Yeah. What's going on? Guan Li asked. That weird noise was keeping him up. He packed up the cot. Looked like sleep was off the table. My men haven't figured it out yet. Those noises just started out of nowhere. Lasted a few seconds, then vanished. Bone said. Huh. That's messed up. Guan Li wasn't afraid of powerful monsters. Bring them on. But this weird stuff. It gave him a headache. Where do you even start? Even if he wanted to fight, he needed a target. Eileen. Anything? He asked. She had sentience, after all. Not yet, master. She said, shaking her head. Shen Lian. Nothing. Shen Lian replied with a helpless shake. Whatever just happened was seriously bizarre. The sounds just popped up. Before anyone could react, they were gone. Sounds like this thing likes playing hide-and-seek. Guan Li frowned. Enemies like that, lurking in the shadows, were the worst. You never knew when they'd strike. Some kind of creepy monster must be hanging around this football field. And it had been watching him ever since he walked in. Even though it stopped, Guan Li wasn't sweating it. If the thing wanted to play, it'd show its hand eventually. Minutes ticked by. Guan Li sat in the stands, scanning the surroundings. The stadium was eerily quiet. Just the sound of the night wind and his own breathing. Are you scared? He thought to himself. Giggle. Quack quack. Hee hee. Those weird laughs echoed again in the stadium. This time, Guan Li heard them clearly. Women, old people, children, all laughing. The sound drifted around. From the field, the tunnel, the stands, sometimes clear, sometimes muffled, sometimes right in his ear. Anyone with a weak mind would be scared out of their skull. But Guan Li was made of sterner stuff. He was immune to the crazy sounds. Everyone, stay sharp. Guan Li said, hopping off the stands and onto the field. He drew his blood-drinking blade. Your cheap tricks aren't gonna work on me. If you've got the guts, come out and fight. He held the blade high, daring the darkness. The laughter stopped instantly. Then, chaotic footsteps echoed in the surrounding tunnels. Then, figures emerged from the 4 passages surrounding the field. They were people, but their bodies were stiff, twisted into impossible poses. No one could move like that naturally. Food. Looks like food. A woman with her head twisted 180 degrees spoke in a monotone. Her voice had no emotion, like a machine. She even had light makeup on. Except for the twisted movements and the dead eyes, she looked almost normal. Trying to be spooky. Guan Li said, cutting off her head. Giggle. You'll die. My favorite food. You can't escape. Even if you're an awakener. You must die. The severed head, rolling on the ground, continued to speak stiffly. No blood spurted from the neck. Guan Li kicked the head with a fierce stomp. No brains or blood. The head just shattered, like porcelain. A puppet? Guan Li wondered. The headless body suddenly lunged at him. Black silk threads shot out from the empty neck, aiming to strangle him. Bone armor. Guan Li yelled, summoning his bone armor. The silk threads scraped harmlessly against the bone. He slashed with his sword, splitting the headless corpse in two. Inside, just as he thought, there was no flesh or blood, just the densely packed silk threads holding it together. Kill. Protect the master. Gu yelled, charging toward the puppets. There were hundreds of them in the 4 tunnels. To win, they'd have to destroy the silk threads inside each one. Otherwise, they'd keep moving. Bone hefted his heavy shield and smashed it into a puppet. The force crushed it instantly. Effective, the skeleton mages summoned fireballs and lightning, raining down on the puppets. The skeleton sword and gun shield soldiers were having a tougher time. They couldn't kill the puppets instantly, so they had to keep hacking away. The shadow sword cultivators used shadow sword art, destroying puppets left and right. The elf archers struggled a bit too. Arrows weren't cutting it when they were just making holes in the puppets. Guan Li told them to aim for the legs. Once they couldn't move, they weren't nearly as dangerous. Chapter 46. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guan Li kept hacking at the puppets with his blood-drinking blade. Blood soul slash. He unleashed a powerful sword strike. The crimson energy sliced through the air. more than a dozen puppets were instantly cleaved in half. As soon as he finished, Guan Li crushed a supply card. The energy he'd used was immediately replenished. The same went for his legionnaires, who were also provided with supply cards. You want to play a war of attrition? Forget about it. I'm unkillable. That with these supply cards, he had unlimited resources. It was just pure, unadulterated wealth, plain and simple. Under the legionnaires' relentless assault, hundreds of puppets were quickly destroyed. The black silk threads and the scattered remains created a horrifying scene. Guan Li stepped on a fragment of an eyeball. Your little minions are nothing special. He paused for a moment, then added, amateur hour. That a strange giggle echoed. The air around them instantly chilled. A figure materialized in the corridor ahead. It was a battered, humanoid doll. Its face was a grotesque patchwork of blood-red stitches. The large, glassy eyes were leaking blood. Clearly, they'd been plucked from some poor soul. The doll's head was covered in thick, black hair. Strands of hair twisted and writhed on the floor. It was alive. Remembering the black silk threads, Guan Li realized this hair was how the puppet controlled the others. Thick blood dripped from its claws. After the quarantine, other survivors must have wandered into the football field. Now, it seemed those unlucky folks had become puppet fodder. That explained why the first attack had been interrupted. The puppet had been busy dealing with them first. Guan Li had assumed it was afraid of him. 3 seconds of silence for the fallen. Guan Li scanned the puppet. The system quickly provided information. Name, string puppet, potential, 7 stars. Strength, 4-star primary. Abilities, puppet art, string manipulation, silk thread snare, hair weaving. Evaluation, a natural disaster monster from the rifts, originally an abandoned doll. Resentment mutated its body, granting it the ability to create and control puppets. Watch out for its razor-sharp hair. Guan Li breathed a sigh of relief. Just a 4-star primary monster. Power-wise, it was far weaker than the lion and beast, but it had those creepy puppet abilities. Luckily, it hadn't created too many puppets, otherwise, he'd have to retreat for now. You've got some decent moves. I almost hate to kill you. The string puppet stared at Guan Li. It seemed to be looking at an interesting toy. And these guys? Perfect puppet material. The puppet's voice was shrill and grating. Enough chit-chat. Eat this. Guan Li launched the first attack, slashing at the puppet. Not a sneak attack, a preemptive strike. Giggle. The more you struggle, the more fun I have. Delicious prey. I'll savor this slowly. A sharp, black thread shot from the puppet's hand. It snaked towards Guan Li, trying to constrict him. The blood-drinking blade sliced through the thread effortlessly. What? Impossible. The puppet sounded shocked. Its thread had been cut so easily. What a sharp weapon. Looks like I found a gem. The puppet's glassy eyes twitched. Protect the master. Go. Bone charged forward, shield raised, but the puppet nimbly dodged the attack. It landed in the middle of the field, scanning the legionnaires. Not bad. My new toys. The puppet had been abandoned in its past, so now it created and controlled puppets to keep it company. The long hair on its head stood on end, then it launched outward. What's it doing? The legionnaires wondered. Dense silk threads wrapped around their bodies, thick, thumb-sized black lines controlled their limbs. The puppet was forcing their bodies to move. The soldiers instinctively fought back, but couldn't break free. Only the 3 commanders managed to avoid the black threads. Master. Recall the soldiers. Seeing the soldiers were being controlled, the commanders urged him. Taking back the legionnaires and cutting off the black lines was the only option. Don't worry. I've got a plan. Guan Li reassured them through their mental connection. At the same time, he sent orders to the soldiers. Attack the puppet. Kill it for good. Ha ha ha. Despair. Your men are mine now. The puppet's mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. It waited for Guan Li's look of despair. Why aren't you afraid? The puppet sensed something was off. The human was way too calm. A good trick, but too bad. It won't work on me. Guan Li smiled. The puppet felt a growing sense of dread. It tried to control the soldiers and attack Guan Li. But it was too late. Barrier technique. Guan Li activated the skill. and the silk threads on the soldiers disappeared, a golden halo shimmered above their heads, free from control, the soldiers swarmed the puppet, they unleashed all their pent-up frustration, rip. The sound of fabric tearing, cotton batting filled the air. Ah! How is this possible? Why isn't my control working? That the string puppet screamed, its abilities were terrifying, but its body was fragile, it only came out of hiding when it was sure of victory, but it had underestimated Guan Li. The barrier technique made the legionnaires immune to negative effects, that's why Guan Li was so confident. The barrier technique was truly a godsend, without it, he would have had to recall his soldiers, and then the puppet might have escaped in the time it took to summon them again. Impossible. That the puppet's voice grew weaker, its body was completely buried under the attacking legionnaires, they had unleashed all the anger built up from being controlled. Guan Li secretly sighed in relief, the string puppet's powers were way too creepy, anyone else would have died in its clutches, imagine if all your comrades were controlled, leaving you all alone. Chapter 47 Puppet Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kill the puppet, get 2000 points, control thread X1. The system pinged, confirming the puppet's demise, the legionnaires scattered, revealing cotton stuffing, tattered cloth strips, and a blue card scattered on the ground. The puppet's corpse held no crystal nuclei, but a small, milky white bead caught Guan Li's eye. What's this? That he picked it up, examining it closely in his hand. Spiritual rosary, increases mental power upon use. The system helpfully provided the item's info. Huh. Boosts mental strength. Sweet. Guan Li's face lit up, mental power was mysterious and potent stuff, he'd read enough novels back in the day to know that, without hesitation, he clutched the spiritual rosary and began to absorb its power. Unlike the crystal nuclei, this didn't flood his body with raw energy, instead, a stream of mysterious mental energy flowed directly into his mind. Guan Li shivered. His senses sharpened, the world around him becoming clearer, he felt a surge of power within his mind, though he didn't yet know how to unleash it. That would come with practice. Guan Li wasn't discouraged, he'd figure it out eventually. The mental boost intensified his perception, he could now sense everything within about 23 feet, an increase of only 6 feet, but significant nonetheless. After all, monsters with mental powers weren't exactly common, and even when you found them, they were tough to take down. The puppet master had been cocky, directly exposing himself. A smarter one would have stayed hidden, just manipulating puppets. Even if it couldn't kill Guan Li, it could have at least gotten away. That's what made psychic monsters so dangerous. If they couldn't win, they'd just bail. Killing the puppet master was a real win. The system awarded him 10 almost invisible silk threads. Control thread, can control targets of equal or lesser strength. Not bad at all. Even with its limitations, having full control over someone was invaluable. Control here meant total domination, body and mind. He could order someone to walk off a cliff, and they'd do it without a second thought. Owning a control thread was like owning a puppet. He slipped the threads into his system backpack for later use, then turned his attention to the blue card. He pinched it lightly, and it shattered instantly. Obtain Puppet Art X1, master the art of making and controlling puppets. Warning, this is considered an evil skill. Whoa. A skill? Guan Li was pleasantly surprised, he completely ignored the evil skill warning. There's no such thing as an evil skill, only evil people who use them. Learn puppetry. A torrent of knowledge flooded Guan Li's mind. Puppetry came in many forms, but two stood out. The first was direct control, forcibly turning someone into a puppet. The second was crafting puppets and then controlling them with special tools. Guan Li had already seen the direct control method. That's what the string puppet had used. It was convenient, but it had a major flaw. A forcibly controlled puppet could break free. Crafting puppets was much safer. You could ensure complete control from the start, but he lacked the materials and containers needed to make puppets, so, the skill was useless for now. Still, he didn't want to get ahead of himself by learning too many skills. Besides, this puppetry technique was an excellent skill. Guan Li was in high spirits. The rewards may have been small, but their quality was excellent. With the puppet master gone, the oppressive feeling hanging over the football stadium had completely lifted. The vague sense of unease vanished. He could finally get some sleep. Looking at the hazy moonlight, he figured he had plenty of time. He pulled out his folding bed, set it up, and drifted off to sleep. His legionnaires stood guard around him. The puppet master's defeat had scared off any nearby monsters. Guan Li slept soundly for the rest of the night. The first rays of sunlight woke him. He packed up the folding bed. Breakfast was his first order of business. His stomach was already staging a protest. As his body grew stronger, his appetite grew with it. He needed a lot of energy to keep his body running. Guan Li crushed 2 food cards. 2 delicious meals materialized before him. He activated his skill, gobble. Hiccup. Guan Li belched contentedly. After breakfast, it was time to move on. If all went according to plan, he'd reach the central shopping mall today. Leaving the football stadium, Guan Li noticed the ground was stained with blood. The string puppet had claimed many victims the night before. People died all the time in the apocalypse. Guan Li didn't dwell on it. He stepped out into the sunshine and headed on his way. Outside the XX community, Guan Li stopped in his tracks. He saw tank tracks in front of the gate. Tanks. The city defense army was finally mounting a rescue. Bullet casings littered the ground, and shattered zombies were everywhere. A fierce battle had taken place here. The tracks were fresh, indicating they hadn't been gone long. Hey! Are you with the city defense army? Several figures approached him from inside the community. Nope. Guan Li shook his head. Shoot! We're too late. I told you not to get greedy. Now look what happened. The city defense army is gone. The group looked like a family. The man in the lead pointed to the woman beside him. She clutched a pile of gold and silver jewelry in her arms. Guan Li was speechless. Risking your life, for that? I don't care. This is my life savings. The woman hugged her loot tighter, eyeing Guan Li suspiciously, a classic hoarder. I don't want your junk. Guan Li ignored them and followed the tank tracks. Hey! Wait up! The man called out urgently, but Guan Li kept moving. He picked up the pace. Toss that crap. Never. I'd rather die than give it up. He could hear the man and woman arguing behind him, their voices fading into the distance. Guan Li changed his plans slightly. He would find the city defense army. He needed to know what was happening in China. 80% of the world's population was infected with the zombie virus. With China's massive population density, that meant the country was in big trouble. Chapter 48 City Defense Army. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Following the city defense forces trail, fresh blood began to appear on the street in front of Guan Li. 2 wrecked armored vehicles sat abandoned in the middle of the road, bearing massive slashes. Signs of a terrifying monster attack. Scattered along the roadside were zombies, felled by gunfire. He didn't spot the creature that had mangled the vehicles, a sign that the city defense's firepower wasn't enough to put it down. Get out. It's too dangerous here. A weak voice warned. Guan Li looked around, spotting a heavily armed city defense soldier slumped beside one of the wrecked vehicles. The soldier's eyes were already clouded over, turning him into a zombie. All the other soldiers around him were dead. Guan Li still felt a deep respect for these soldiers who had defended the people, giving their lives so others could live. He hurried to the soldier's side, where blood kept bubbling from the man's mouth. With his last shred of consciousness, he urged Guan Li to flee. That was the spirit of the city defense force. An iron will. Guan Li cut his finger, letting the blood drip into the soldier's mouth, hoping his immune gene could somehow save him. Sadly, the transformation continued. He'd suspected this would happen. The immune genes only worked on him. Sorry, Guan Li murmured, then used his blood-drinking blade to end the soldier's suffering. The soldier's expression froze at the moment before zombification. He definitely wouldn't have wanted to become one of those ugly monsters. Don't even think about it, Guan Li said sharply as the blood-drinking blade's tendrils reached out, then quickly recoiled. This was a hero, worthy of respect. Guan Li hoisted the soldier onto the armored vehicle and set it ablaze. The flames spread to the corpses of the surrounding soldiers, giving them a final, fiery resting place. Guan Li felt the weight of the moment but didn't cry. In the apocalypse, this was the new normal. If he cried every time, he'd run out of tears soon enough. For the strong, tears were a luxury. After taking care of the soldier's body, Guan Li moved on, walking for about 10 minutes before he heard the distant crackle of gunfire. Finally, Guan Li picked up his pace. Following the sound, he found himself at a medium-sized shopping mall, where city defense troops in camouflage uniforms were laying down constant fire. The mall was surrounded by zombies, with 3 tanks positioned at the entrance, their cannons blasting away at the horde. Shells ripped through the mass of undead, but the gaps they created were quickly filled. The sheer number of zombies overwhelmed the tank's firepower. Damn it! There's too many of them. If this keeps up, the tank won't last. Someone get the main unit. Inside one of the tanks, the soldiers were sweating bullets. Zombies were already swarming the vehicles. Signals down. No contact. A soldier yelled, holding up a useless communication device crackling with static. Damn it! If it wasn't for that monster, we wouldn't be separated from the team. Another cursed. Up on the second floor, flames spat from the windows as the soldiers fired streams of bullets at the zombies below. This was a lost squad. They were supposed to be securing nearby survivors, but a terrifying monster ambushed them on the way. They managed to fight it off, but only after suffering heavy losses and losing contact with the main force. Inside the mall, on the second floor, over 200 soldiers were trying to protect 700 or 800 terrified survivors huddled in the corners. "Mommy, I'm scared." A little girl cried. "It's okay, Xin, Uncle Qingfang will protect us." Her mother reassured her. "It's over. We're all gonna die. Too many zombies. There's no way out. Damn it. How did things get so bad?" Despair swept through the crowd as people began grabbing food from the stores, succumbing to a final, desperate spree. Might as well be a full ghost. The soldiers, exhausted and low on ammo, didn't try to stop them. They knew once they ran out of bullets, they'd be forced into hand-to-hand combat with the undead. Even with the tanks blocking the main entrance, the relentless horde pressed on, shattering the surrounding windows and climbing inside. Damn! The soldiers in the tanks were helpless, forced to watch the zombies pour into the mall. They couldn't do a thing. Moving the tanks would only let more in. All they could do was keep blasting the surrounding zombies with their cannons, trying to thin the relentless wave. Zombies! They're coming in. We're dead. The zombies surged toward the second floor, the flimsy barricades of tables offering no resistance. Some survivors near the escalators were pulled down and devoured. "Help me!" The man gurgled, struggling for a moment before falling silent. The soldiers reacted quickly, firing a volley of headshots into the feasting zombies. But more zombies were already swarming up the escalators. "Fall back. Third floor." A soldier yelled, seeing the second floor about to fall. They quickly organized the survivors and began retreating to the third level. "Run! Get out of here!" Faced with death, the survivors became selfish, ignoring the soldiers' orders and scrambling desperately for the third floor. Those who tried to escape first were pulled down and torn apart by the zombies. "Go! This way!" A dozen soldiers cleared a path, firing at the undead on the escalators, giving the survivors a chance to follow closely behind. Xin, don't be scared. Don't look," the woman said, covering her daughter's eyes as they raced up the stairs. Most of the soldiers stayed behind on the second floor, firing on the horde pouring into the mall. Suddenly, the shelling stopped. "Cease fire." "What happened?" a soldier called out anxiously. "We're out of shells," came the grim reply, silencing everyone. The tanks were out of ammo, rendered useless. On the second floor, soldiers pulled their triggers, hearing only clicks. They reached for their waists, finding empty pouches. "Out of ammo, PS. I'll update immediately. If you like this book, please support it, thank you." Chapter 49. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "Shit! No ammo," a city guard yelled, then swung his rifle but at the oncoming zombies. The zombie went down, thrashing. Ugh! It tried to get up, but the guard smashed it in the head with the rifle butt. "Anyone got spare rounds?" the guard asked, panting. "Li Chi. I've got some, but not much." Another guard tossed him a magazine. "Thanks, Feng." Li Chi snapped the magazine into his rifle, the zombies just kept pouring onto the second floor. The guards had to aim each shot, they couldn't afford to waste a single bullet. Most of the civilians had made it to the relative safety of the third floor. The guards knew it was a delaying action, staying on the second floor was a death sentence, but maybe they could buy the others some time. Holy crap! Mutant, that the guard by the window shouted. A zombie crashed through the glass. This one had flaps of skin stretched between its arms and torso, like bat wings. The virus had mutated, giving it wings. It was horrifying. Open fire. Now, that the guards reacted, ripping off bursts, they riddled the zombie with holes. Its head exploded. Before they could even catch their breath, 3 more winged zombies swooped in. They slammed into the guards by the window, blood sprayed everywhere. Ack! You freaks! Go to hell! That the guards on the ground, with their last strength, triggered the grenades on their belts. Boom! The mutated zombies were vaporized. Back! Get away from the windows. Knowing about the flyers, the guards scrambled away from the glass. At the escalator, zombies kept surging up. Many guards drew knives, fighting hand to hand. They held the line long enough for most of the civilians to reach the third floor. The guards stood their ground on the second floor, battling the horde, but time was running out. The gunfire died down, they were out of ammo. Then let's do this the hard way. A guard drew his knife, he stabbed a zombie through the skull. Li Chi. Take care of my family, okay? A guard named Ah Feng had been scratched and infected. With his last words, he pulled the pin on his grenade and charged into the mob. No. Ah Feng, Li Chi screamed, heartbroken, but it was too late. Ah Feng detonated the grenade, taking out a bunch of zombies. He died in the blast. No. Why? Just, die already. Li Chi, covered in blood, slashed at the zombies. He was a man possessed. He and Ah Feng had been friends since they were kids. They joined the guard together, vowing to protect their country. Now, this damn plague, this zombie virus, his best friend was dead, right in front of him. Ah Feng's sacrifice was just one of many playing out on the second floor. The infected guards chose to go out in a blaze of glory. But the nightmare wasn't over. Rumble. A deafening crash shook the building, the floor vibrated. A tank had smashed into the mall. They could see the dents on the tank. What kind of force could do that? Boom boom boom. The building shook again. A 10-foot-tall zombie lumbered into the mall. Its muscles were like steel cables. Its face was a grotesque display of teeth and sinew. Its thick arms were covered in bone spikes. Another new breed of mutant. Roar. The giant zombie roared. The sound shattered the windows. Everyone covered their ears, but they still felt dizzy. It charged and grabbed the crippled tank. Its claws ripped into the armor plating. The soldiers watched in horror. Zombies that could tear apart tanks. Was there any hope left for humanity? Several soldiers scrambled out of the tank, ready to die. They armed their grenades. They charged the giant zombie. Sensing danger, it swatted them away. The grenades exploded in mid-air. The force of the blast staggered the monster. Holding his breath, a soldier watched for any sign of damage. No way. It's fine. His eyes went wide. The giant zombie stood up and brushed itself off. The grenades hadn't even scratched it. Its defenses were unbelievable. The giant zombie spotted the soldiers on the second floor. It grabbed the tank and hurled it at them. Heads up, Li Chi yelled. The soldiers scrambled for cover. The tank crashed through the floor, crushing zombies. Brothers. Let's take this thing down. Li Chi pulled the pin on a grenade. He was going to die trying. One grenade wouldn't do it, but what about a dozen? Every soldier carried grenades. Let's do it. I'm dead anyway. I've lived a good life, I ain't dying like no coward. A middle-aged guard shouted. Yeah. I'm dragging that thing down with me. Let's blow this freak to hell. The others echoed. Up on the third floor, the civilians were losing it. We're done for. We're all gonna die. I don't wanna die. Despair. Pure despair. The guards armed their grenades, each one ready to give their life. They weren't afraid. They had sworn to protect the people, and they would. As the soldiers prepared to attack, a black-fletched arrow pierced the back of the giant zombie. The arrow pierced the zombie's iron-like skin. What incredible strength. The soldiers saw a glimmer of hope. Roar. The zombie roared. It pulled out the arrow. Red eyes locked onto the mall entrance. A lone figure stood there. the longbow in their hand held an arrow bristling with barbs, thwack. Another arrow buried itself in the zombie's shoulder. The wound was a scratch to it, but the act infuriated it. Chapter 50 Tyrant. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guan Li arrived just in the nick of time. What he saw made him frown. Zombies had completely surrounded the shopping mall. He immediately ordered the legionnaires to clear a path. Even though there were tons of zombies, they were mostly 1 or 2 star strength, only a few were 3 star, relying on their superior power. The legionnaires carved a bloody trail through the horde. That's where things stood when he arrived. The corpses were quickly filling the path they'd cleared. The legionnaires had formed a semicircle, with the skeleton soldiers holding guns, swords, and shields on the front lines. 20 of them, shields raised, withstood the zombies' attacks, occasionally striking back with their weapons. Elf archers stood behind, firing a constant stream of arrows. A shadow swordsman took care of the zombies flanking the formation. The rear was secured by other legionnaires. Aaron stood at the mall entrance, waiting for a chance to shoot. Guan Li, Gu, and Shen Lian rushed inside. Spotting the giant zombie, the system immediately provided intel: name, Tyrant, potential, 6 stars, strength, 4-star intermediate, abilities, rampage, brutal charge, steel skin, burst charged fist. Evaluation: a powerful zombie, mutated from a violent individual, possessing even greater power and a steel-like body. Well, no wonder he looked familiar. It's an old friend. Guan Li thought the tyrant looked familiar. Turns out, it was a violent type evolved. He almost went down to the violent ones back then. Roar. The tyrant roared again. Those tiny ants dared to attack him, a blatant provocation. The tyrant stepped forward, charging at Guan Li. Each footfall made the ground tremble. Brothers, keep taking them down. Seeing hope, Li Qi turned and hacked at the zombies. He wanted to live, and he needed to take care of Ah Feng's family. The city defense soldiers also felt a surge of hope. If they could live, who wanted to die? Quick shadow. Seeing the tyrant rush him, Guan Li used his skill. His speed instantly increased, dodging the tyrant's attack. The tyrant missed, smashing into the ground. Gravel sprayed everywhere. A crater appeared where Guan Li had been standing. That's insane power. The tyrant was definitely the evolved form of the violent kind. Strength-wise, he must have been at least a 4-star high level. Guan Li drew his blood-drinking blade. The sword's sharp edge sliced across the tyrant's body, leaving a bloody gash. Roar. The tyrant roared in anger at the sight of the wound. It didn't feel pain, but the physical damage made it mad. Steel skin. The tyrant activated its ability. The wound instantly solidified. Its skin became coated in a layer of steel, reflecting a metallic sheen. The tyrant whirled, swinging its thick arms at Guan Li. Bone armor. Guan Li hurriedly used his skill. Handsome white bone armor instantly formed around his body. He held the blood-drinking blade in front of him. The tyrant's blow was powerful. Guan Li was sent flying. He felt his blood surge, but thanks to the protection of the blood-drinking blade and bone armor, Guan Li wasn't seriously injured. The tyrant's attack, while powerful enough to knock him back, exposed its weakness. You damn monster, you dared hurt my master. Bone roared. A blood-red light radiated from its body. Enrage activated. Bone's strength suddenly surged. It slashed at the tyrant, the terrifying power shattering the steel skin. Good. Nice job. Guan Li shouted. Swordsmanship. Shen Lian controlled the black iron sword, slashing at the tyrant's wound. Swish. The wound split open, and dirty blood gushed out. The tyrant swung its arm, trying to smash Bone. Bone raised his shield, but the tyrant's strength sent him flying. Look for openings. Attack its weak points. Seeing the tyrant's wound, Guan Li knew to target its weak points. Ordinary flesh wounds wouldn't do anything to zombies. Understood. Gu and Shen Lian nodded. Guan Li gathered himself and charged the tyrant again. Because of all the corpses, group tactics were impossible. Guan Li had to fight this one-on-one. He swung the blood-drinking blade, aiming for the tyrant. The blade cut through the tyrant's defense. The blood-drinking blade extended its tentacles, trying to drain the tyrant's blood, but the tyrant broke free. Taking the chance, Irene fired an arrow of pure energy, piercing cloud arrow. With tremendous force, the arrow flew towards the tyrant's head. Click. The energy arrow struck the tyrant's eye, and blood spurted. The tyrant grabbed the energy arrow with its huge eyeball. Roar. Threatened, the tyrant entered a rampage. Its already 3-meter-tall body grew. It was close to 4 meters. It stood in the mall, like a mini giant, rampaging. The tyrant's strength increased. It moved faster and went straight for Irene. It had one goal: Aaron. The one who hurt him. Gu raised his heavy shield, stepping in front of the tyrant. The tyrant punched him, instantly sending Gu flying. Shen Lian used shadow binding, summoning black chains that wrapped around the tyrant, but the difference in strength was too great. The tyrant quickly broke free. Seeing this, Eileen didn't just stand there, she started running through the mall. Hand of the Blood Demon. Bloody tentacles wrapped around Guan Li's arm. He charged toward the tyrant, slashing with the blood-drinking blade. With the Blood Fiend's hand boosting him, his strength skyrocketed. The blood-drinking blade struck the tyrant's arm, slicing off several bone spurs. The tyrant swung its arm, trying to take down Guan Li first. Teleportation. Guan Li vanished, and the tyrant missed. As the tyrant wondered where he went, it felt a chill on its head. Guan Li appeared above the tyrant. Blood Soul Slash. A terrifying blood-colored sword energy struck the tyrant's back. Explosive piercing energy fist. The tyrant sensed death. It raised its arms, energy gathering on them. Bone spurs shot out, heading for Guan Li. The tyrant jumped, throwing a punch at Guan Li. The two energies collided. Guan Li was sent flying, hitting the ground hard. He kept spitting out blood. The bone armor shattered. Guan Li immediately crushed recovery cards one by one. Gentle energy flowed into his body. His injuries began to stabilize. The tyrant wasn't so lucky. More than half its head had been cleaved off by the blood soul. It was kneeling on the ground, twitching. Irene wasn't about to miss this. She drew her black branch bow, drawing an energy arrow. Whoosh. The arrow flew, hitting the gap in the back of the tyrant's head. The tyrant's head was pierced. The kneeling body collapsed. The ground shook. P.S. Support the book if you like it. Thanks.